Hey, what is up everybody? Welcome to the Motopilot Garage. Behind me is my 2013 Street Glide, and it has a common problem with these bikes that may have happened to you. Let me show you what's up. So what happened one day is I was just riding along as usual, and I went to grab my front brake and it was like solid. Like the brakes didn't kick on, but I couldn't pull in my brake lever. And I was like, that's really weird. And so over time, I kept riding the bike, and then sometimes it would work perfect. Sometimes I'd grab it and it just wouldn't move at all. And I'm like, okay, so I did some research, and let me show you what the problem is. This right here, boys and girls, is the ABS module. You can see here I already have my brake lines disconnected, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bypass this thing and eliminate the ABS on this bike. Not a big fan of it. This thing's very expensive to replace. What happens on these older models is the brake fluid gets moisture in it, and over time it just gets in here and corrodes things. The way to avoid that is to keep your brake fluid fresh, but 99% of us do not do that. Now you'll find videos on YouTube where people are actually bolting these lines together and bypassing this. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put on all new brake lines that just bypass the module, go straight from the caliper up to the master cylinder. I also like this idea because I put on a set of fresh Performance Machine calipers. You can see how beautiful those are. So I'm gonna have these really cool looking brake lines coming up. Now I get my brake lines at Core Moto. These guys will build basically any kind of custom line you want. And I really like this transparent red. It's almost like an anodized looking red. Let's pull these out of the package and check them out. All right, so I ordered a front brake line and a back brake line. Basically, you can order them with any kind of connectors you want on here, any color. You can even choose the color of these little tags right here and how many grommets you want. I usually order extra grommets, and I just cut off the ones I don't need. I might not even need any of these, but at least they're there if I want them. Comes with all the hardware you need. You tell them what hardware you need. And then for the front brake line, we're gonna come off the front master cylinder up by the hand. It's gonna come down to the bottom of the fairing, and then it's gonna divide off to the right caliper and the left caliper. The way I figure out my cable lengths is I just take a piece of fuel line like this. If I needed it longer, I just taped it together to make it longer. And I just take this and tape it to one end so it stays in place, and then I just string it along the path that I want the brake line to go. Easy. Let's get it installed. I'm not going to tighten this one yet. I want to get everything in place before I tighten any of these fittings. And just know this bolt right here, this banjo bolt, is a fine thread. So if you're ordering their bolts, you want the 1.0, not the 1.25. Obviously you want to make sure you have a crush washer on both sides. This bolt came with the caliper. It's got these washers with this nice rubber inner ring. So I'm going to use those instead of the ones that came with the brake line. Okay, so let me show you guys the routing. The left side caliper comes up over here, and I replaced the block that used to be down here with one of these cable loops. It basically bolts in right here, and that's holding everything in place. Then it comes over here to the T. Then as you can see, comes around here to the right side caliper. And what I did was I rotated this joint right here, so the cable is now away from the front fender. You don't want this thing laying against your front fender, because that's not going to be good. Then one more thing I did here is I took a zip tie and I went around the triple clamp here and actually zip tied around the line here to kind of hold this up, because it was kind of sagging down a little bit, looked funky. And then came up through here, going up to the master cylinder, came up along the handlebars, and I wanted to follow the path of the handlebars, so I locked down the cable with a zip tie here, one right here at this bend here, and then it comes up here and meets the master cylinder. So guys, if you want to do these lines on your bike, this upper line right here is 28 inches long, goes down here, there's a T right here, Then the right side line to the right caliper 16 inches long. And then the line that goes to the left caliper over here, that line is 21 inches long. The back brake line from the master cylinder to the caliper is 45 inches long. The fittings for the front brake are a straight fitting here. Then for both calipers, it's a 90-degree fitting. On the back brake line, you got a 90-degree fitting on both ends. There and there. So to bleed the brakes, I use this handy tool. It's basically this little jug down here that collects the fluid. It's got a trigger handle right here. I got it hooked to my air compressor, and I just squeeze. Hear that? And then I've got a line going from this to each bleed fitting. You got to crack these open and then pop on these rubber pieces here. They just snap right on. And as I pull that trigger, it's sucking fluid out of the master cylinder. Well, you got to, jeez. And you want to make sure you keep this master cylinder full, or it's going to suck air, and then you got to keep on bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. So what I'm noticing is gravity alone is drawing fluid out of this master cylinder without even pulling that trigger. So I put some fluid in, then I let it kind of drop, and then I put some more in, and then I'll start bleeding it with the air compressor unit. All right, so using the air method did a really good job of getting most of the air out, but I wanted a little more action in my lever. I like my front brake to be really responsive. So I put a little piece of hose on here, draining into a little pan, and then I put the wrench on the bleeder valve, and I usually just pull the lever 2 or 3 times, hold it in, crack this open, let the fluid bleed out, close this, let go of the lever. I did that maybe twice, and I felt the lever get better action. So this is a good little way to do a little fine tuning. I did this side, I did the other side, I did them one at a time, and it worked. So you can see here's my front brake. There you go. So now we need to tackle the back brake line. All right, so the back line's all mounted up. You can see here I got it connected with a 90-degree joint. Comes through here, goes behind the frame here, comes around by your motor oil check dipstick, comes down, goes down just before the CO2 sensor on the exhaust, clear of the exhaust. Make sure your line is not even close, as far away from the exhaust as possible. Then I just come along the bottom frame rail here. The 2 grommets I ordered with the line are used at my zip tie points. One there, one there. Comes up here, goes behind the brake pedal, comes out in the front. I'm gonna have the rear brake light sensor here. Let me show you on the stock setup. You had a line that comes back from the pedal, and you got your sensor right here. See that sensor? That plugged into, here's my passenger peg, comes straight down. There's a couple wires right here. That's where it used to plug in. So I'm gonna run 2 lines from here up to the sensor in the front. That's supposed to arrive this afternoon. Now I know this is Cobby, but I am doing a ride tomorrow, and the hardware store is closed. So I have 4 bolts. These are M10 by 1.0 thread. I just stuck them in these holes for now. They're tight, so I can put the cover on and ride without any spillage. What I will is I'll eventually get some nice little plugs to go in there. But in the meantime, those will do the trick for tomorrow's ride. As you can see here, the front reservoir is full of DOT4 fluid. Then back here, the bleed pump is hooked up to the caliper. You can see now it's only a single line. You can make this thing either a single line or a dual line. So let's just start pumping. Now I got to keep a close eye on this because it's going to drop pretty fast. You can already see it's already dropped down about halfway. And I just keep doing this until it's going to suck all this fluid through the line. I got to keep coming back here and filling up the master cylinder. You don't want to start sucking air. Then you want to start seeing fluid coming out of here. That's when you know it's bled all the air out. Okay, that was weird. The only way I could get the fluid to go through the line was to sit here and pump the brakes slowly as I'm working the vacuum unit. I push it down slowly, and then as I let it go, it would suck the fluid through. And it actually sucked it through pretty quickly. So you can see here I got good brake action. Just put the cap back on and she's ready. All right guys, so to make the lighting work, you don't have to worry about the front brake because, well, let's turn the switch on here. Lights are on. If I hit the front brake, you can see it works. If I hit the back brake, you get nothing. Okay, that's because we unhooked the electrical. So what we're gonna do is we have this brake switch activator. It's gonna bolt right in here. I'll unbolt this and I'll put this in place of the bolt, and I'm gonna wire it. I changed the connectors on the end. I took some wiring I had, put some other connectors on it, male to female. I'm gonna come back here. I'm gonna cut it to length, and then I'll add these connectors, and these will go right in the stock connectors right here. So that should make it happen. Let me get that wired up and I'll come back. All right, so we got the sensor bolted in, got the line running back through here, running down along the frame here, got it zip tied a whole bunch, keep things nice and tidy. And then we got our little connectors hooked to the bike here. Let's give it a test. Headlights on. Sweet. Now my backlight blinks about 5 times before it goes solid. Yeah, she's working. All right guys, that is it for this episode of the Performance Bagger Build. Make sure you stick around, there's quite a bit more to do on the bike. One of the upcoming things is we got a set of cams going in this. We got a different exhaust. Working on getting some ported heads. I do need custom heads to run with my cams because they're 570 and from S&S. Quite a few other things to do to the build, so come back, check it out, subscribe, like, comment. Let me know what you guys think of this braking setup, and I will see you guys in the next video.